Next question is related to Homeland Security. I've been quoted in the Asheville Citizen-Times, Raleigh Observer, local papers here in Macon County. Homeland Security. Our security for Homeland is very important, but so is our hometown security. What steps would you make to make sure that funds were sent down to the hometown security?
You went first last time. Okay, we'll do that first this time. Yeah.
Do you know when the government takes issues seriously? In the history of this country, do you know when that happens? It's when the people demand that the government do it. When did we demand that the border between Mexico and America be closed? About 5 years ago? It was open until then. When did we demand that the threat against this country be dealt with in a serious way? Was it after 9/11? Probably. I seem to remember that's when we started demanding that somebody do something about the kind of threat that we experienced on that day. The Homeland Security Act and the revision of the government taking place after 9/11 has taken place over a 6-year period after 50 years of focusing on the Cold War that has no relevance to today. One of the reasons why we have such threats is the government's not organized to deal with them. And they didn't know what kind of threat they were about to face. No government could have anticipated 9/11. No government could really have anticipated Katrina and the disastrous effect it's had on this nation. But when we the people decide that it's time for the government to act, they usually do. Or something like what happened in 2006 happens. In the Homeland Security business, there's no more important responsibility in the Congress than defending this country against external and internal threats. So as far as I'm concerned, every action that the government has at its hands, every response it can take to send money to local communities to promote our first responders' ability to respond in a way that is appropriate under any circumstance that would threaten the well-being of our citizens is what I would support.
Any battle you fight will be won or lost at the local level, one city, place at a time. So the home matters. I would put money, however, as secondary to two other words: communication and cooperation. Two things that our intelligence agencies at the national level are not good at. If you listen to the Director of National Intelligence, Michael, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his last name, charming person. Sir? No, sir. McConnell, thank you. Charming, intelligent, capable man. He says we haven't got our act together yet. We're not working together like we need to. We're still stuck in that old need-to-know mode where we don't want to cooperate because we're afraid some of the bad guys will get a hold of the information. We've got to change that. As was suggested earlier, we're in a new century. It takes new methodologies. So you fix it, you fix the federal level, make sure it filters down to the local level, and then cooperation and communication are strengthened. Thank you.
I'll begin with an interesting question. How many of you think that more Americans have been killed overseas by foreigners in the last 5 years as opposed to Americans killed in America by foreigners in the last 5 years? How many for overseas? How many for here at home? You're absolutely right. In terms of drunk driving and drug deals and crimes that go bad and the killing of Americans on American soil, men, women, and children, the higher death rate is here at home. And these are not people who volunteered for duty with a weapon and training. These are people who were slaughtered on the highways or back alleys. That's part of our Homeland Security. And where does that hook up with North Carolina? 5 years ago, I was invited to speak to a group of state legislators from around the country on the subject of the state need to act with regard to American security. The main thing we talked about was driver's licenses, because there were several states whose laws were very, very sloppy, and North Carolina was one of them, which is why of the 50 licenses, 30 licenses that the 9/11 hijackers carried, a large number of them were from North Carolina. You get a cheap North Carolina license, you go anywhere else and swap it for a better one where they have more security. We have got to have secure driver's licenses. And that's got to be nationwide, because if one state is sloppy, the terrorists are not total dummies. They will go to North Carolina, wherever's the weakest link, get a license and take it to any other state they want to be in, plug it down on the table with the DMV and get a new one elsewhere. That's why it's got to be solid. And I said it to the state legislators, either you act or Congress is going to do it for you and stuff it down your throat. And that is exactly what Congress has done, which under the federal system is not the best way to proceed. But I told them, either you straighten it out or Congress is going to act, and it has. We have to know who is here, and there's a fringe benefit. If you have to have a driver's license with a photo on it, that means there's pretty good odds that when you vote, you got to prove that you are the person you say you are. And you only get to vote once, and you actually have to be a resident of the state in which you're voting. These are unusual concepts in states like California, but I think Indiana's idea can spread to North Carolina, and that's part of Homeland Security